Hi, my name is Kevin Loftus, and this is the second video in a series that are exploring Bertra's Dunes and its future going into 2050. The videos are a summary of workshops that we're holding to explore Bertra's Dunes and their future going into 2050. Currently, the dunes are under a lot of pressure from coastal erosion and overuse. And what we're doing in these series of workshops is exploring the potential ideas and how they could be implemented in order to improve the situation. The first workshop, storytelling, was held on the 14th of July. There we set out to understand the community's understanding of the situation, the obstacles and opportunities that can come with a project like this and with the dunes, and also ideas to improve the situation. The second public workshop, Visualizing Futures, we took the ideas that were developed in the first and we created visuals of those to be able to communicate, evaluate, and get people's feedback on those various ideas. The next workshop, which will be held on the 15th of September, Pathways to Delivery, will take those ideas and try and understand how they could be implemented with consideration of funding and with consideration of management and stewardship and any other obstacles that may be in the way. Following that, we will take all the previous information and create a holistic vision draft for Bertra going into 2050 to see how we can improve the situation and regenerate the dunes. That will be held in a town hall type event, which will be again open to the public and where we will ask for feedback. That last round of feedback will be then taken into the final document delivery, which will be the roadmap for Bertra going into the future. In terms of supporting partners, we have King Coast, Mayo County Council, Marisk Development Association, the Heritage Council, which are the funding partner of this project, NUIG Galway, Leave No Trace, Bertra Connected, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and the Atlantic Seaboard North, CARO, as well as various other community stakeholders, individuals and groups. The storytelling summary, just for anybody who didn't see the first workshop or the video following it, we give a quick overview of the current situation and why we're doing what we're doing. So why do the dunes matter? Well, the sand on the beach within Bertra owes its existence to the dunes, as the beach is the sort of natural store between the sea and the dune system itself. We have the recreational value of the dunes, although this has been overused, and we will explain that further. The biodiversity that exists within dunes is unique, and we have 10 habitats on Bertra itself. There's a tourism benefit to having the dunes, as well as the shelter that they provide for livelihoods within Clew Bay. Of course, there's a history of usage of Bertra and a cultural link within Clew Bay to Bertra and its dunes. Also, the scenic value, the backdrop that they provide for Clew Bay is iconic in its own right. And there's a blue flag status that again would link its existence to the dunes. Probably most importantly, the dunes provide a natural barrier of protection for the inland areas of Marisk, Belclare, Westport and Caraholy from the sea and the increased activity from climate change. So all of these benefits can be lost if we're to lose the dune system. So what's happening to the dunes? One of the major things we're seeing is sea level rise over the last 120 years. It has increased by 30 centimeters. Also, the increased intensity and frequency of storms or cyclones, as we can see here, and that has increased by about 3 per decade over the last 60 years. As mentioned before, the overuse of human activity that has increased again through periods like the COVID gone past, having a big impact on its ability to regenerate itself. So in from 2010 to 2022, just a 12-year period, we see a dramatic reduction in marine grass that's holding the dune systems together, and that has reduced by 62%. So something that should look like this currently looks like this, and a lot of that being attributed to human activity. And if we don't act, it may look like this. So in the first workshop, we asked people to give their own interpretation of what's happening, and we've recorded that in this storytelling dialogue sequence. So the feedback also contains information that we got from the online survey, and from that we've made these following conclusions. So taking an eye-level view from Bertra, half of the people asked believe that damage to the dunes was the primary problem that exists at Bertra. And the reasons given for that are dune overuse, sea level rise, and an increased storm frequency. People believe that this will lead to habitat destruction, as well as the loss of Bertra as we know it. There's also an understanding that coastal protection is one of the key benefits of the dunes, and if we're to lose that, we will see increased coastal flooding and the loss of livelihoods. On a positive note, there's a belief that by implementing nature-based solutions, we'll be able to improve the situation. There's a sense that old mindsets are an obstacle to this type of idea being implemented, and also a sense that a lack of funding is holding the situation back. There's an understanding that for any project to be successful in terms of implementation, it needs support from the community. 3 scales were identified as benefiting from the dunes. So the dunes themselves, the townland and homes around Bertra, and the broader Clew Bay area. There's a belief that there will be an increase going into the future of recreational use, dog walking and human activity. There's a sense that a project like this can be an opportunity to create a connection between other coastal communities that are exploring and dealing with the same problems. There's also a sense that this is actually an opportunity to return the dunes to nature, and in doing so to create a new relationship between humans and nature where we start to understand more the benefits that come from them and build a resilience culture around that. So what you see here in this image are all of the pressures that we've gone through, and the threats that come from those pressures. So what ideas have we to respond? The next series of images will show the ideas that came up through the workshop, and they fall into 3 different categories. One being supporting behavior change, so supporting people's behavior to improve in terms of use of Bertra and the dunes, preventing dune damage, and dune restoration. So starting with supporting behavior change, more signage on the dunes was an idea that was raised, also providing an alternative path to encourage people to move off the dunes, having controlled access points at certain areas where you can go across the dune system, and with all of these considering, of course, what will happen into the future. Providing alternative recreational spaces. So we know that the dunes are used for play spaces, for running, for hill running, for picnics. So can we provide alternative areas that people could do those activities, freeing up the dunes? Can we use art as a way of engaging people? So not being so strict, but also in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, engaging people and creating an awareness of what's happening at Bertra. Providing information related to the tides so that people know when to use the beach, not to be caught out where they have to use the dune system to return. There's an online campaign and the potential of bringing that online campaign physically to the site where people are able to link in and learn about the situation. Creating a conservation tour around the dunes to again increase awareness. Also creating awareness through different organized activities on the beach. Making climate change local, so making it visible and understandable for people in the context of Bertra, including relevant groups, again, like Leave No Trace in whatever the future of Bertra will be, and monitoring the amount of activity. And that activity is, of course, human, but then also the state of the dunes as we go forward. Gathering that data and being able to communicate it back to people so that they're aware of the situation and how it's degrading or improving. And again, to continue the video and social media campaign that has been running. Creating outreach to the communities around Clew Bay, the schools, different groups and clubs, so that they're all aware of the situation. Potentially creating a community charter where people actually commit to not using the dunes in a negative way. Having a management plan that people can view, that they can contribute to and be part of, as well as own and implement. Creating new traditions around resilience in the way we would have during harvest time brought people together for the benefit of the community. Can we do the same thing around resilience and bring people together to help improve Bertra's dunes? Discouraging people to actually use the dunes by moving the car park from where it is to a further distance away. And in the same way, providing greenway access so that people are encouraged more to go by bike rather than by car, and potentially not to use the dunes on arrival. Preventing dune damage. So this is the next series of interventions that were proposed. Removing the hard engineering that still exists on the site. There was hard engineering on the site before, and during a series of storms that was actually responsible for more damage than good. And there are remnants of that hard engineering still on site. Fencing off the dunes as an extreme scenario, but something that potentially would stop the damage that is happening. Providing a boardwalk so that people can move through the dunes, but in such a way as not to damage them. And going a step further here to have designated recreational areas along the dunes. Excuse me, so there's something happening here. Yes, I'm back. Providing controlled grazing areas. Having sheep grazing can actually regenerate the dunes if it's done over a controlled period. Having time for regeneration. So basically having shifting land uses. Maybe an area is used for grazing at one point and then it's fallow at another time. And then it can be fenced off and fallow at another time. So we're allowing different activities at different times to give the dunes a chance to recover. Providing wave attenuation through things like seagrass in the bay, and also using an artificial reef for the same type of benefit. Restoration, so the last category of intervention that we have. So we've looked at the potential of using straw bales as a buffer, and also to help rebuild the dunes themselves. Planting of marram grass, which is one of the main nature-based solutions that would actually help the dunes solidify, and the implementation of dune fencing, which acts as a way of gathering sand and also will stop overuse. There was a proposal for using grounds on the spit or having breakwaters out at sea, and even the idea of replenishing sand back to the beach and allowing natural processes to take that and distribute it, allowing the beach to reinforce it. So what we have here are a series of behavioural changes, dune damage prevention interventions, and dune restoration ideas. What the behavioural ideas might look like on site, again, what the dune damage preventions may look like and where they would be, and the dune restoration proposals. So if we take a timeline, where we are currently is 2022, and where we're looking is towards 2050. A lot has happened in the last previous 120 years. So actually 30 years into the future isn't such a long time. So there's a question here for us to determine what will this future look like. It could be a defensive future where we're trying to limit people's access, we're trying to fence off the dunes and prevent as much damage as possible. It can be a passive future where we're monitoring the situation, we're not asking people to disengage, but we're trying to control their activity in a way that's not overbearing. We can have a reactive future where we're coming to do repairs after damage has already been done. We can have a proactive future where we're planning ahead, we're trying to engage people, and we're trying to see what needs to be done before any further damage is done. And we can have adaptive future where we're changing our strategies depending on what the current conditions are. In reality, the likelihood is that it needs to be all of these things: defensive, passive, reactive, proactive, and adaptive. And it will need to change depending on the urgencies, on the condition of the dunes, and also where we're learning what works and what doesn't work. So some questions to leave you with. Can we have it all? Can we have everything without losing the dunes? Is that even possible? Might we lose it all if we don't act now? Do we need to really engage and be strict with our interventions? Is this the start of a managed retreat? And that means a managed retreat from Bertra itself, from the beach, but also from the coastal communities around Bertra. As we will lose defences and the sea level rises and storms increase, is that something we're going to have to deal with? And will this buy us time? So whatever ideas we implement now, will they give us the opportunity to have more time to evaluate, to come up with new ideas, potentially for new innovations to come around that will allow us to continue to have a positive future in Bertra? The situation as it exists now, if we don't act and we lose the dune system, will open us up to flooding, and that's the worst case situation. So what can we do in order to alleviate that? Thank you. So the next series of questions is to analyze those different ideas, interventions, and we are asking you to analyze them in terms of impact, impact, how beneficial they will be, in terms of effort, how much funding will they need, how much management in terms of man hours, those type of things. That means effort, how much effort will it need, and time scale, and that's time scale for implementation. So is this something we could implement within a year? And that's a quick fix. That's short term. Medium term, is this something that would need 3 or 4 years to be implemented? And long term, is this something that would need a longer period? So please answer the questions below, and thank you for participating, and we hope to see you at the next workshop. Bye for now.